Anyway, I want to welcome everybody to our first of our series of leadership lectures that we're holding here at SUNY Campo this year. And I want to mention that this series of talks is actually sponsored by our friends at Corning. And our first speaker is here from Corning as well. And so today we've got Ms. Margaret DiFabio speaking with us, and she's had a very interesting career. She holds a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and in operations research, and a master's degree in business administration, both that she got from Syracuse University. Should have come to SUNY, but nobody's perfect. Okay, she was appointed Division Manufacturing Director, Advanced Optics, Specialty Division at Corning in September of 2012. And in this role, she's responsible for advanced optics manufacturing, quality and supply chain operations. And that's something incredibly important these days. We were talking a few moments ago, and in any just and fair world, the people who do supply chain and quality will rule the world, okay, because it's that important. She joined Corning in 1986 as a manufacturing systems engineer in the Science Products Division. And in '89, she became part of the Consumer Products Division, where she held progressive engineering and production supervisory positions. So she moved up the chain before becoming the head of the quality department for the pressware plant. In 1997, she moved to MTE and then Specialty Materials. And here she led engineering activity associated with the Canton plant expansion and the construction and startup teams for the Charleston plant before moving to a division of engineering management. And in 2004, she moved into environmental technologies, where she held plant engineering manager and plant operations manager responsibilities at the Berlin plant. And so she was appointed plant manager of environmental technologies at the IDM plant in 2008, and then at the Irwin plant in 2011. And so lots of locations, lots of different kinds of responsibilities, and it'll be really interesting to hear about the skill sets involved and kind of how you came about this path. And so without further ado, let's welcome Margaret DiFabio.
I'd like to talk to you just a little bit of intro on Corning Incorporated and the division that I run manufacturing for and the local Canton plant, just to kind of give you the local connection. And then we'll talk about kind of leadership experiences through the years, and feel free to ask questions along the way. I'm here so that I can share those perspectives, but if they're kind of pointed at an angle that's not too helpful for you, then just redirect me to some of your questions, okay? Okay, so we just went through a long history here on the left of the different roles that I've been in. This has a little bit more detail, but I guess the point that I just wanted to share by listing those out is to show that a person who graduated with an engineering degree found my way into quality and supply chain and engineering leadership roles and operations leadership roles. So sometimes today, well, you'll see over here, I have 3 kids. They're all either just out of college or both, the younger 2 are in college, right? And they say to me all the time, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. And I try to express to them that you pick a field of interest to you, you enter the work world, and then you follow your nose, right? Those things, those experiences that are out there will shape in front of you. And you'll gravitate towards those things that you like and you're good at and your company needs. And they may open doors that, as you sit here today, you couldn't possibly imagine. So while it may feel narrow, at least it does to my kids, this narrow major I've chosen, have no fear. When you walk into the world and you walk into that next position, you're going to pick up a bunch of experiences you can't fathom today. that will open a variety of doors, and you just walk through them as your experiences allow. Okay? No problem. All right. So a little bit about Corning. We're an old company. We were founded in 1851 in Corning, New York, which is a 4-hour drive south from here. It's a pretty small town. And so later I'm going to talk about our values as a company, and they were pretty well shaped because of the fact that we grew up in a small town where our responsibility as a company to our neighbors was direct, interacting directly at the supermarket and at the gas station and at work. Very small community, as you may experience up here, where our behavior as a company mattered and we were directly held accountable in the community in which we live, and that's the source of much of our value set today at Corning. Now, of course, we're 35,000 employees. We're all over the world. More than half of that workforce is now overseas. And that opens up new challenges for us to manage what we know as local culture, and then an expanding U.S. culture, and then to incorporate cultures from other locations in the world. We've been on the Fortune 500 ranks for a long, long time, and right now we're 297. I don't know that means anything to anyone. It's a very complex company, lots of different divisions that range from, on the left, we're sort of famous out in the world for our display technology, our flat glass panels that go on televisions or laptops. And over on the second to last column there are Gorilla Glass, which you might see commercials about or know that you have on your cell phones today. And that product has been invented and a significant part of Corning's growth over the last years. But then again, our base maybe in the next recent years before that was optical fiber, invented in Corning, New York, and supplies the lion's share of the optical fiber in the world today. The third column there is environmental technologies. The ceramic substrate that goes in your catalytic converter on all of our automotive or truck vehicles. The filters on our vehicles are produced, they were designed, invented by Corning Incorporated, and now repair more than half the vehicles that are out there on the road today, up to 80% depending on where you are in the world. Very different, right? Fiber, ceramic substrates, flat panel display, life sciences over there, where the Pyrex beakers and test tubes and graduated cylinders that you might have used in chemistry class, all invented and produced by Corning Incorporated. Now we're into cell culture, media, and plates, and there's a whole bio aspect of Corning Incorporated that has grown over the many years, from beakers and test tubes to all of this world that is now there. And so it's a huge variety. So remember before I was talking about how you enter the world and then you see what interests you. And in a company that's big like Corning, you have the opportunity to kind of channel yourself into an area of interest, even if you love the field of study you're in, right? You can apply it so much differently in life science than you can in flat panel display. You can live in Kennebunk, Maine, or you can live in, Fuzhou, China, okay? And you can have all of those experiences as well. So if you're worried about narrow, find it, a place of education like this where you can have your pick of opportunities, and maybe later a company where you can have your pick of opportunities and applications also. This is just more on the inventions that I was talking about there. It's from the envelope for the first light bulb all the way through to today. Lots of history at Corning Incorporated. Innovation is a very important part of Corning's history. We spend fully 10% of our revenue base on innovation. Our research and development facilities, primarily in Corning, New York, but also in France and St. Petersburg, and there's now new growing locations for us in the research and development area. Just inventing fundamental knowledge, driving new inventions, solving difficult problems, and making the world a better place. A few years back, I created this video called "A Day Made of Glass." Has anybody happened upon this little thing. We made it as a sort of a media presentation, and then it kind of went viral at that time. And I just want to show you a 90-second version of it, but if you go out on YouTube and you do, Corning Day Made of Glass, you'll see a whole variety of these. There's been a couple of versions of them. You'll see, what are the Mythbusters, Jamie and Adam, who've sold their souls, but anyway, they did a whole feature on Corning's glass, and there's some clever things out there if you're interested in learning more. Let me see if this will work. Sound. Those aren't all available to us today, right? But Corning fully intends to deliver on the commitments that you see or something very close to it. Hang on.
In early 2011, Corning, a global specialty glass and ceramics manufacturer based in upstate New York, created a video, A Day Made of Glass. Corning published this video online and gave us all a glimpse into the near future. In a remarkably short period of time,
It's just, yeah. All right, somebody find this while I. All right, so that's a little bit of advertising, maybe about 20, but it's been a company I've worked for 29 years and had a variety of experiences. It's been a delight for me and my family over the years. My son just finished his second internship there this past summer, and it's been cool for him as well. So if you're seeking opportunities like that, I encourage you to look further into Corning. So one of the things I was asked to reflect on was kind of leadership in my 20s, 25, 30, 35, maybe through the years. And so as we pull this up, I want to share with you just some of my work experiences and lessons that I've learned there. But stop me along the way if you're wondering what was I thinking at that point in my life that I did something that I did. As we've shown before, I went to Syracuse University, and so my 20s say I'm went to Syracuse University, the basketball pep band, got to travel to the NCAA tournaments, Big East tournament in New York City. It was a great time in my life. And during that time when you participate in organizations and in your education like that, you're learning about what I call here me, myself, and I. You're learning how to manage yourself as an independent person for potentially the first time in your life. You're exploring and experiencing all kinds of things. You're trying to figure out who you are. And then at the end of that, you're going to step out into the work world and begin to contribute for the first time in your life in a paid manner, in a significant paid manner, right? People will look at you and say, I want you to bring the hard skills that you learned at school to this problem. and suddenly you are thrust into a level of responsibility. But still at that stage in your life, it's all me, myself, and I, right? It's about what can I bring to the party. So when I transitioned out of Syracuse and into our life science division, I was given the first project to, it was called the End of the Lear Project, and I was stricken by the fact that I didn't know what a lear was. And so before I started work, I called home and I said to my dad, "What's a lear?" And Dad didn't know either, which was like, well, we'll just see. So here I am. Well, that wasn't really me, but this is my daughter transitioning into this science product. My point is that you don't know what's out there, and you are only at that point in time trying to figure out how do I bring what I've learned during your years here at school to a problem that I'm given right out of the gate. And so you will use the things that you have learned in school. You think you will not, but in one way, shape, or form, I promise you, you will. We were just talking about, will I use, if I have to interpret a poem, will I use that as an engineer out in the world? And I commit to you, yes, you will. It's critical thinking. You're thinking about how to grasp a concept that isn't plainly evident. And out there in the world where you make things or you engineer things, the answers are not plainly evident. If they were plainly evident, we wouldn't need that much help, right? So interpreting and critical thinking skills are very necessary. So there I was, me, myself, and I solving the End of the Lear project. But with all of my hard knowledge, I would go to propose solutions, and the people who worked in the operation in the manufacturing location would look back at me with their bloodshot eyes and say, "It'll never work," right? And so what I lacked at that time was enough experience to give credibility to the things that I had learned in school, right, that I could bring to the party, and experience to have the wisdom to know the difference between ideas that would work and ideas that wouldn't work, or the wisdom to judge whether the pushback I was getting was based on the fact that they were up all night long fighting a production problem, or seriously, it won't work because of some critical thing going on in the operation. So I said, "Hey, send me in, coach, I want to go be a shift supervisor." So I moved out of my individual contributor role out into the operations workforce in the pressware plant where we make, come on in, where we make Corel. You guys have Corel at home? Corel dinnerware, womanware you might have heard of. It's only made in one place in the world. This green, what's it called? Spring blossom. Spring blossom. It's a plant that takes raw materials and converts it into decorated plates. Okay, and we did make cups at that time in that location. Right. So now here I am with all my ideas, and I'm a little frustrated that I can't get everybody to do stuff, and I'm thrust into the reality of actually making something. And I'm rotating shifts with everybody else, and so I'm tired too. Right now I got bloodshot eyes, and I don't want the next engineer to come around the corner and tell me how to solve something that they don't, they haven't spent the time in the middle of the night to learn about, right? So you start to realize that solving problems is more than just the engineering expertise employed to a problem. That human beings, in the end of the day, are the ones who are operating, who are making things. They're pushing buttons, they're lifting, they're moving, they're changing what's going on in the operational environment. And so learning the softer skills about how to evaluate what's going on, what the human condition is in this little microcosm, and applying that to your problem grounds you out. The other thing that happens when you're a shift supervisor in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning is it's just you. You're the leader. And suddenly you have to stand on your own 2 feet and decide, am I going to go along with the middle of the night shenanigans that might happen? Or am I going to lead the organization to a behavior set that is more consistent with what would happen on the day when everybody else is around? And you start finding out where do your core values lie, and who do you align with? It's a very interesting study when we put shift supervisors out online for the first time who we're expecting will know better, right? And then you find out that the force field is very difficult to manage. And so we teach leaders how to do that at all times of the day, around the clock, in all kinds of situations. The expression, characters who you are when no one's watching. Supervision is like that as well. Okay, so then, all right, now I got the shift thing down. So, and I did a pretty good job of that, so they're like, hey, we'd like you to run a department. So now, I moved from the department where the plates are made to a department where we made the silk screens and the etch plates and the ink that goes on the plates. So it's like a bunch of little departments all together. Well, now, of course, your workforce base goes up and you start realizing that leadership is more than just me and my relationship with these 20 folks. Because I can pretty easily, we can all get on the same page, It's just us against everybody else. We're rotating around the clock, but now it's a whole different setting. People are rotating and you're not. So leadership takes on a whole nother level of kind of the mental game about how do I understand what's going on, how do I impact behavior in a positive light, how do I produce the results. And I add that little safety first thing because suddenly I'm, as a shift leader and then as a department leader, I realize I'm responsible for safety. Lots of very bad and dangerous things can go on in the production of anything. And suddenly I'm responsible for the well-being, right, and the conditions in which every other human being is, including myself, is operating. And so, was I trained to do that in school? No, I was not. But you have to learn quickly because as soon as somebody gets injured and you send somebody home from work in a worse shape than when they came to work, you realize that you have impacted lives well beyond the person standing in front of you. And so it's important that you also pick up on those clues that you're not just responsible for what you've been asked to do, but the environment as well, right? That you might not have been specifically asked to do. So, target in the year, some engineering project work, engineering organizations, leadership roles, and all these different things. They all kind of thematically kind of building on each other until I got a call and said, hey, do you want to be the plant manager? Wow, really? Me? Now you have all, I was the plant manager of one of our environmental technologies plants, that ceramic substrate that I was talking about. Now it's just a much, much larger group of people, a much, much more diverse organization that you're leading. You are suddenly signing documents that say, that manifest that say that the hazardous waste that you are disposing of was done so in an ethical manner with certified providers and whatnot. You are certifying that, there's a certification aspect when you move into the plant manager ranks that I didn't realize before. It's a level of responsibility much greater than I had previously. And now you're balancing quality, speed, efficiency, cost, all of these balls that are up in the air at the same time. You're trying to figure out what lever to push, what to emphasize, what vital few to select for the organization to work on to balance and deliver the best you can deliver here. Now you realize I've got a whole organization of people depending upon our success. 400 people, 500 people in the plant whose livelihood depends on my ability to get the organization to kind of pump on all same cylinders, right, and deliver those results. And the toughest role you have in leadership is when you gotta let people go. When you have failed to deliver, or the sales folks have failed to deliver, and you have to scale your organization down. You look in people's eyes and say, I'm sorry, but this is the end of the road. We have to be half the size we were before. And those are hard things to do. So the point that I'm trying to get at is that the engineering education and experiences that you may be picking up along the way, depending on what you're studying, and that I certainly picked up along the way, are a small percentage of the skills that are utilized in my work through the years. They really, truly are. Humans do the work. Humans make things. Humans solve problems. Humans diagnose problems and solve them. And do not underemphasize in your experience that in the activities that you participate in. Don't let the opportunity to observe others and learn about how groups are influenced from good to bad shape you and how you will manage things going on in the future. So, okay, great. Plant manager, you did a really good job of this little plant, so now we're going to give you a bigger plant. So that was awesome. And I guess that went okay. Next thing I know, they're like, hey, we'd like you to be the manufacturing manager in the division. Thousands of people, right, in the division, and I'm responsible for the manufacturing, supply chain, quality aspects of that. And now I got 3 plants in the United States. I got 1 in France. I got 1 in Germany that we acquired, we bought, and then sort of made according. And the stakes get a little higher. Suddenly you realize that you're responsible for things like participating in the dialogue about price, right? Now, I was just making stuff before, right? I do lowest cost, lowest cost, lowest cost. Now I gotta participate in the dialogue about what's our strategy with our customers. And what new technology should we be investing in? How do we divide up our engineering dollars so that we can both solve problems in the current manufacturing setting and pave the way for new capabilities in the future? So your scope and your frame of reference just gets a little bit more challenging because it gets more diverse. And then the next thing you know, you're asked to come and talk to folks in city camp. And because you're international, you have this intimate relationship with Delta Airlines. You know, think factors that were not a factor before become factors. That diversity of experience can either, call to you and make you continue and drive you forward, or you may find, you know what, I don't like that. What I like is technical depth, and I want to be a subject matter expert. I just stand before you as a person who that diversity of experiences and exposure set there, that calls to me. That's where I love to pursue future, right, my future. But there are others who definitely love the technical depth within their field, and there's a place for that technical challenge as well. So maybe you can have somebody who emphasizes that, because that is equally challenging in a whole other set of dimensions. So, 2 more slides, and then if you want to ask questions, you're free to do that. So I'll talk a little bit about soft skills. I've spent a long time on that today. But somebody said, think of it as a house, right? No one wants a house without a firm foundation, and nobody wants a firm foundation with nothing on it, right? So you gotta do both. You gotta get those hard skills in whatever field you're in, but you also have the soft skills because after all we're humans and we all interact in the system, right? So I found this picture. I don't know what it means. I mean, I don't know where anybody knows what the active zone underneath the foundation is. Might add something to this, but I like the idea here. Let's make the soft skill dimension of ourselves and our learning, make that an active zone. It's not a passive thing. Right? Spend time thinking about that, about what am I doing to develop those skills, to be better at observing human nature, how organizational dynamics are, how I communicate, to improve my communications, written, verbal, etc. Okay? Make that an active zone. Don't just kind of go through the hard education process. Find yourself out the other side going, well, I just blew that. I mean, I had all these opportunities to participate in organizations, to lead organizations, to, evolve those soft skill experiences. Take the chance to do that now. And you'll have a running head start when you get out there in your work world. Okay? And then lastly, I was asked to comment on, okay, so what happens? You get into a organization. What are my thoughts on climbing the corporate ladder, right? How does that happen? And I am relentlessly consistent in my nothing on this, nothing you could do or say will trump performance wherever you are. Right? Whatever job you've been given, whether you love it or hate it, whether you think it's a fit or not a fit, the best way to move forward is to master it and perform and deliver in the role that you're in. Even if you're going to take a sidestep into, some other, kind of career path, the easiest way to do that is to do well in the one that you're in. Okay? Deliver on the hard skills you've been trained on. Do that with the soft skills that we've been talking about here today. Contribute what you've been asked to contribute, and then some, right? Delighting the customer, in this case your management team, is always a good idea. A little bit more. Be an active and engaged citizen in your team. That means that you help others. That means that you provide insight into problem solving, even when you haven't been asked. If you have to have a particular insight that no one else on the team is solving it has. So be active, be engaged. Manage yourself. I say manage your direct reports. And I also say manage your boss. So you are equally responsible for training your supervisor as your supervisor is for training you. And if you remember one thing, remember that as you move this room. It's not just that the boss is the boss and they do what they do. And you're just a victim of it, right? You have to find a way to influence that dynamic and to develop that person as well, with your perspective and the talents that you can add to the dynamic. And then part B, right? Seize the day. If the door opens and you feel like you should walk through it, walk through it. Raise your hand. Say, I'd like to walk through that door. Can I do that? And if the system says no, you're not ready, ask why. Find out. What is it that I don't have? And get those experiences, or round out that dimension of your experience set, so that the next time that door opens, you're capable and ready, willing, and able, and certified, so to speak, to walk through it. Okay? Those were my thoughts that I wanted to share today. We skipped over a whole bunch of stuff because of the way the slideshow, but that's okay.
So can we give you a couple of questions?
Yes.
Between travel and work, how many hours a week do you say you work?
I am on the road probably 25% of the time, maybe 20 hours. The rest of the time I'm in coordinating meetings that I don't sit in, but I mean, it's just, there's a lot of, it's a funny little thing that goes on, right? Butt time increases the higher you go in an organization, is my experience, right? And so sometimes that's on a plane, or in these locations in Germany and France, and those are kind of fun places to go to too. But a lot of meetings, a lot of corporate meetings, when you're on the corporate management group. When I was in a plant, I was never traveling, very rarely, maybe 5% of the time as a plant manager.
So how many hours do you work in a typical week?
Be honest.
Well, the reality is that, let's say 7 to 6, normally, maybe. Okay, but my reality is that the phone is ever present. These damn cell phones. Because now you're always connected. There is no way. It is my phone. It's my access to email. I'm textable, and so I'm constantly engaged. I'm on vacation, I'm at home, middle of the night, early in the morning, with plants that are halfway around the world. For some of the folks in our display division, their entire division workforce that rests in So, you know, when you go to sleep, you wake up and there's a day's worth of email and contact, right? Things require your attention, your input, your guidance, your insight. So, you know, it depends on where in Corning you are today.
If you had one language to pick, what would you give the students as a recommendation?
Foreign language to learn. I would learn Mandarin. I always used to answer Spanish, but in Corning today, it'd be mighty useful if I spoke Mandarin. Either one of those two is perfectly acceptable and no one to me. One's a lot harder than the other.
Along the same lines, a number of students here, we're talking a lot about communication and the importance of communication, but also about cultural differences. You now are the division manager for a plant in France and one in Germany. What did you have to do to prepare for that? And what issues can you talk to us about?
Yeah. This is a really significant fact. Cultural differences, they're just profound and they're subtle too. It's very hard to understand when you have phrased something in a way that is offensive. Or just plain totally missed, right? And so what you have to do is you have to be as especially in the beginning, as you know, like when we bought the German facility, right? There's it's not as substantial as the, you know, Chinese, say, U.S. gap in culture, but it is there. It's very profound. It's very noticeable, right? So in the beginning, the communication was narrowed down to simplify it as possible to the point, and then I always have routine meetings to say, okay, let's revisit those communications, because then I can verbalize it and I can ask, does that make sense? Is there any part of this that wasn't understood? How could I do better at communicating that? When you say this, what do you mean? Now, the other factor is that often, at least with the German and France plants, their written English is significantly better than their verbal spoken English. So giving them a chance to write it down and send it to me before I take action, or assume that I understand what's been said, that can help as well. So different tools depending on, now it's interesting, the German acquisition, in the beginning it was really rough, right? Slower, much more difficult conversations to get at what you're trying to get at. The growth in their language skill set by communicating on a frequent basis with the U.S. is just really amazing. And every time I go and every time I have a conversation, I'm disappointed in myself. Why haven't I learned German? Why haven't I done that? Look at what they've done, you know? So, maybe do it. Yes.
So you see a evolution in those countries, specifically France, more so than Germany, towards socialism. Do you think that changes the quality or the effect of the workforce in any way?
And we have a plant, the one that's in France is a cultural expectation and legal requirement in many dimensions is that the workforce is stable. That you do not reduce your workforce without significant involvement and engagement and negotiation with the unions that all salaried and hourly folks belong to, and the government. And so we're slow compared to American standards, right? Significantly slower to take action. 18 months to take 40 people out of the workforce. Here in the U.S., anywhere you go, you can do that on Monday. Right? And so I'm not declaring right or wrong either, because there's beauty in, you know, there's goodness and badness in all dimensions of how you look at that, right? The structure that the French government requires is pretty different. For example, we do not do reductions. Like we don't consider family status, like if you're married or not. You don't consider age. And in France, it's a requirement to consider it. Right? Because there's all kinds of things you gotta learn in order to manage it effectively. So, but it's a very different culture, and you just have to embrace it. It's not like we're gonna change that, right? So you just have to learn how to manage around it, with it, in it, because it is us. It's not something we fight, it's a thing that is, and we just have to be able to embrace that in a different way than you might here in the US. Did I get at your question?
When you transition from college life to actually